So we're going to talk about parenting again. The producer made a comment recently that we had not done a lot on parenting, so we're hitting a couple of those. And I was preparing this particular show, and I recalled an event that I thought, wow, it wasn't a professional event. It was a while ago. I think I might even have been young, walking in a mall, if you can imagine, in the middle of a rather busy mall. And I was struck by this emanating, wildly loud and aggressive sound. You can imagine in the middle of a mall, just reverberating everywhere, where this child was in the middle of a mall wailing at the top of this child's lungs. And nobody knew what was really going on, but it went on and on. And then you could notice a dad sitting beside the child or near the child on a bench, just letting this event roll wildly, loudly on. And it indelibly made an impression on me about parenting. And so we're going to talk about spoiled children. What is a spoiled child? How do you manage it? What do you do? I think that might be a fun reality given all of the today's events and opinions and wildly ranging thoughts about parenting. So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. I'm Chris Gazdick. He is Craig Graves. I'm a mental health and substance abuse therapist. I have a book, Re-Understanding Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self, available in paperback. Holy cow, that would be this month. March the 16th is the launch date of that. Craig has an unbeatablemind.com website where you can that's not right. That's not right.
Wininyourmind.com.
Wininyourmind.com, which is his unbeatable mind coaching service that he can offer you throughout the world. So check it out. He's got a lot of really cool... Dude, you've been doing some presentations, and you're really kind of ramping that up, aren't you?
Trying to, yeah. Having some fun with it.
And you're getting good at it. I mean, you guys get a chance to see any of these presentations that he's had. I've sat in on a couple of them. And, dude, if I could just publicly compliment you, you're kind of rocking the house with that stuff, bro.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm certainly having some fun with it. I've got, if anybody out there listening wants to have a conversation, if you go to wininyourmind.com and you click on if my internet would cooperate here, on the coaching link, I've got a free coaching session link there, and I'd love to take somebody through that if they're interested in doing it.
Wait a minute. No coaches are free.
I'm giving free 2-hour sessions. This is not some sales pitch deal. This is a real coaching session that I'll help somebody with whatever they bring to the table. So love to have a conversation if you're out there and like to have one.
Very cool, man. Definitely appreciate that, Craig. So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast where we see the lens through the therapist and a coach. Being aware it's not delivery of therapy services in any way, check out throughatherapist'seyes.com. This is, as always, the human emotional experience, and we endeavor to figure this thing out together. So, man, I think this is going to be a fun conversation because there's a lot of opinions out there about children, Craig, and in today's day and age, not just because of the pandemic and stuff, but boy, whenever we cover parenting, I just feel like we have pretty active conversations because of all of the things that people are thinking about with this awesome relationship, unlike no other relationship that you have when you're a parent with a child. And a lot of guilt, a lot of fear about how do I do this? How does this go? And you got society banging on parents. I think last show we talked about what was it? Hopelessness in parenting. Was that the last one we did?
Yes,
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big factors with this is people in society just blame parents. I mean, parent blame is a terrible, terrible reality when you're trying to look at this unique relationship that you can't have with anybody else, where you're supposed to be large and in charge, but you really cannot control another human being. So how do you deal with this, and how do you avoid spoiling your child? Right? Doesn't that sound like an interesting question?
Indeed.
Have you spoiled your children?
Absolutely not.
Oh, come on.
No.
I didn't plan on doing this, but have you ever given them ice cream just because they asked for it?
Well, I mean, sure, I've done things like that, but I wouldn't, that's part of being a parent, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. Hey, can we have ice cream?
No.
Sure. Why not?
No.
But there's been plenty of times I've said no to ice cream.
Yeah. It's interesting. I got to hit you cold, man. What's a spoiled child? You hadn't checked the show notes out. I think you briefly looked
I
over.
haven't checked them out. My definition of that is just a kid who gets what he wants, who pretty much kind of rules the roost, or maybe he acts like he or she acts like they're in charge. The parents never say no. There's never any discipline, and the child pretty much does what he or she wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty close, I would say. I mean, what was the show that we did? Oh, I remember what it was. Do you remember talking about being a functional alcoholic?
Yes.
You remember how I was kind of like, dude, I don't even know what that is. To me, it doesn't exist, right? I'm not going to go so far as to say that, but I got this cool definition on psychology today that I thought was pretty interesting when I was geeking up my brain for the show. But I want to kind of refute it, honestly, because I'm not sure. Like, functional alcoholic, I don't think really exists. I don't think that's really I don't think it happens, though it can appear that way. Spoiled child probably does occur, but I don't really know what the heck it is. I don't know that it really, like, what is, can you really spoil a child per se? I mean, it's really a lot of gray, I guess, is what I'm kind of saying. Whether it even exists or not is a lot of gray in my brain, and there's a lot of a continuum here. I mean, believe me, you can really mess up a kid with parenting. I mean, I've seen some crazy things. But I really believe that the parent is doing the best that they can with the resources and emotional and physical that they have to offer. Like, I believe that almost 100% of the time. May not have a whole lot of emotional resources sometimes, but, there's a personal responsibility of a child the older that they get. So no matter what the resources around them are, can you really, spoil a child, I would say, really, when they're particularly in middle school and high school on, responsible a lot for their own development and whatnot, right?
Yeah, they should be in a lot of ways.
Right? I mean, my middle school principal kind of helped me understand that as a parent years ago. They said, you know what? Let them fail. Now's the time where you don't sit down there with the kitchen table and ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. You kind of, you start taking some steps back. Well, I guess when you're dealing with a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, you can quote unquote spoil a child. But I don't know, man. It's as we go along here, just kind of keep in mind how easy is it to really spoil a child.
Well, I think, I don't know if you're missing the point, or maybe I'm not understanding, but if you let a kid do whatever they want to do, have whatever they want to have, then that's going to play into who they become as young adults like that, or children who end up going to middle school or high school.
Yeah.
And then those things that happen at that younger level, they're going to play out as they get older.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that totally.
So maybe middle schoolers and high schoolers aren't spoiled, but perhaps they don't have the skills to do what it is they need to do if their parents just let them do whatever the heck they wanted to when they were young kids.
Which is interesting. So is the topic of this conversation more, if we water it down, more parenting style and relationship and whatnot with elementary school kids? I don't know. I haven't thought of that, but maybe we are kind of focusing in on a little bit of those earlier years when you think of issues with spoiling a child. And I think that's probably true, because I tell you what, when I deal with tantrums and parent-child relationships, dude, I've literally had kids like on the floor crying and screaming, throwing a tantrum in my office. One time dragged out of my office because the session was over by the mother. Literally.
Really? That's funny. That's funny, man. I got a friend. He's not much younger than me, but he is younger than me, and he used to have tantrums when he was a kid. And tell me a funny story one time. So he was laying on the floor having a tantrum, kicking and screaming, whatever. Actually, his father told me this story. I knew his dad too. And so his dad's friend and his wife come over, and they didn't have children. So they saw this guy laying on the floor, kicking and screaming and crying, and the guy says, "Hey, honey, look. There's a kid having a real life tantrum." And he heard the guy say this, and he looked over there. He looked over there at that dude who said that, and from that point on, he never did that again ever. Hey, there's a kid having a real life tantrum over there.
How old was the kid?
I don't know. I don't remember how old he said he was, but a young kid.
Well, my entry into this particular episode, man, I mean, that was a true story, and I wasn't a professional, I don't think, at the time, honestly. But I mean, this kid was going off in the mall. It was dramatic.
Yeah, I can't remember a situation that I've been in like that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, but I do know kids growing up and kids that I've seen since that I would say that they're probably spoiled kids, And Chris, what you're saying, man, we've raised a generation of people who kind of have an entitlement mentality, and maybe some of that plays into parenting styles and kids being spoiled when they were younger. Everybody getting a trophy and stuff like that,
Yeah, I do think there are some societal implications. Keep that in mind, Craig, because I did not have that a part of the show prep, and that might be something that we tag on to a little bit. But that's a big topic and almost a secondarily big topic from what we can cover today in the individual parent-child relationship, because there are some things, and oh gosh, you hear people again, but that's the criticism, right? Societal criticism on parents or coaches and programs and schools, and everyone gets a trophy and everyone gets, good grades and smaller grades and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it is, how do you balance, supporting kids in their crucial time of their life with development while you hold true to their own personal responsibility to perform? That's a balance. And I think we've gotten out of balance, I'm sure. I'll make that statement. Societally.
Yeah, we definitely have. We don't want kids to fail. We don't want them to fail. That's why everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
We're not keeping score. Nobody loses. Everybody wins.
It's funny.
It's not how life is when they grow up.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. All those trophies and everything, you'd think they were so great and whatever. My oldest kid got a little older. He didn't want any of them.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, I got
they meant nothing to him.
Box full of trophies that nobody cares about or wants.
Like literally about 20 of them. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. So check this out with Psychology Today, the brilliant people over there. A spoiled child may be recognized by an unwillingness to conform to the ordinary demands of living in a family. For example, a refusal to come on time for dinner, a demand for attention or for a privilege denied to others, a strategy for getting his or her own way by creating a fuss publicly. Oh man, in the mall, for instance, that's a good place to do it because it just, dude, the echo chamber that's in there, to use a popular term, it's powerful. Spoiled child is likely to be irritable and unsympathetic to others. He seems comfortable ignoring his parents' wishes. He wants what he wants when he wants it and how he wants it. To add, by the way, for that reason, he may seem impulsive, and the spoiled child is likely to grow up to be a spoiled adult. I thought that was a good definition. As I roll on that, Craig, that kind of covers a lot of the things you were saying, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's from Psychology Today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but check this out. I was just sitting here. Actually, truth be known, I actually prepared this show like forever ago. And so I had a new take on this when I was just sitting here before the mics came on, man. I was reading that definition, and here's what my brain did with it today, about a half hour ago. Okay? Poke holes in this a little bit, if you will. Right? So a spoiled child may be recognized by an unwillingness to conform to the ordinary demands of a living family. For example, the whole dinner time example they have here. Well, you know what? It's funny that at the age of 2, and we're going to talk about developmental things, I think, in a little bit. Or is that next show? I don't know. Or was it last show? The age of 2, do you know what word a kid learns?
Da.
No, come on, man. That's like when they start talking at 8 months or a year or 2. My wife knows all that. Nah, man, they're fully interacting with you at age 2 and tying their shoe and all that kind of stuff. What word comes to mind that a kid says to a parent?
No.
Correct. No. And I'm sorry, the terrible 2s aren't that bad. You get to the 3s, that's when it gets real, right? You remember the kids being that little?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, why are they saying no? They're pushing back. They're developing independence. They're really doing developmentally what's kind of ingrained almost in there to gain an independent state of functioning, and they don't want you to tie their shoe. They kind of have something in them. It just says, me, I want to do this, and that's developmentally appropriate.
I think that's probably developmentally appropriate, right? No, I want to tie my own shoe, Dad. Okay, get after it.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's time to eat. No. Yes, it is. Get down here and eat.
Yeah.
There's differences there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely. And Love and Logic, I think a lot with these types of things would say, yeah, well, do what you want. I mean, you want to tie your own shoe, go at it. Doesn't affect anybody. Dinner time affects everybody. We're cleaning, we're working, we're cooking. Time to eat, and now it's time to clean up, and we all do that together as a family. We're a group. And so, but the independence factor needs to be identified there. A demand for attention. We talk about kids being, attention seeking, and they have a lot of attention seeking behavior. Screaming and tantruming, which I've seen a lot of, is like a bad way to get attention. However, are they not really insecure? If we look on a deeper level, I think that there's a lot of insecurity there with kids. And they're screaming for insecurities. And thirdly, what was number 3 there? Strategy for getting his or her way by creating a fuss publicly. A tantrum is like a scream for help. I don't know what to do. I can't deal with this problem. And I've got to help you. You've got to figure this out for me. You've got, and that's what that dad in the mall was there saying, all right, you know what? I'm not coming to your rescue. You got to figure this out. You've got a lot of emotions right now, and you've got to figure this out and work through your own emotions and feelings. But they're saying, I can't do that. That's what a tantrum essentially is. It seems manipulative. They are trying to get their way and get what they want when they want it. But the truth is, they don't know how to cope and deal with their problems or emotions, I would say.
It's an interesting way to look at it, I guess. I've never thought about it like that.
And the last one that, the spoiled child is likely to grow up to be a spoiled adult. Oh, no, I messed that up. We want when we want it, and how we want it idea. Honestly, this goes directly to what you were just talking about with society. A kid wants what he wants when he wants it, right? I get ticked off when I don't have on-demand TV now. What happened?
Yeah, we're definitely we're definitely that way as a society. Oh, you want a new car, but you can't buy it?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll finance it. So
Absolutely.
You can have it right now.
Right.
TVs, come on, we'll finance that for you too.
Absolutely. It's, TVs and radios and, free houses for everybody in 2007 or something, right?
Yeah. We've created that problem ourselves as a society, and it has changed over the years. I remember talking to my mother and father, and they didn't get things until they could afford them and to pay cash for them, And I think that credit is so easily available these days, credit cards, and me and my son went and looked at a car yesterday, just curious because we like Jeeps, and there was a cool Jeep on the lot. And the place was closed, so we didn't get bombarded by the pushy salesman. But on the way out, the sign in the window said, Everybody gets finance.
Like to challenge that one.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I got some people that would benefit from that, sir.
Well, maybe so. But the point I'm making is, it's just, if you want something in today's world, you can get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that we've blamed parents in a lot of ways with some things that we're really trying to figure out as a society and to a man and a woman, how to manage these things, with emotions and all of that. And kids, man, dude, they need help, to develop and grow. And we make choices. But like you say, one of the big choices that probably creates a spoiled child is having a child has no idea what a college education costs.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah.
They just don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue. Or, that's true.
My younger guy's talking about getting some crazy, what was he talking about? He wants to, I don't know. I'll just say an expensive car, with like all the window dressings and everything.
I remember my son, I have a 26-year-old, and he went to college, and he's doing quite well. He's a great kid. But when he was in college, he came home one weekend, and he was doing, I think he had a C in a class. He was doing poorly, and me and his mom were talking to him about the grade, and he said, well, it's not a big deal. I can just drop this one and retake it later on down the road. and I'm like, do you know how much that course costs? And he's like, no. And I think it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was $850 or something crazy.
Right.
Like, something like that. Maybe more. I don't remember. But anyway, I said, well, this course costs that much. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, so if you drop that class, you're going to have to pay for retaking it.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And I'm like, well, do you have that much money? And you could see his wheels turning, and his eyes got real big, and he said, no.
Right.
I said, well, I suggest you start studying then.
Exactly.
And he ended up passing the class and doing pretty well. But you're right. They have no clue. They have no idea.
No, and what's funny, Craig, is like that's a dude, and the audience doesn't know your kids. I feel like I can say this because I've gotten to know them. Not your older kid as much, but I mean, these are responsible kids that are developed and are pretty well adjusted and whatever in most ways. And this is a well adjusted, developed kid that, what was he, like 22?
He was probably 21, 20, 21.
Right, we'll call it 20 plus, and we're talking about kids that are 7.
Yeah.
Trying to, think through and feel through and deal with these kinds of emotions and whatnot. That's tough.
Yeah, it is.
To say the least.
It's hard to hold the kid accountable, man. It is. And you said something about beating up on parents. I don't think it's really parents' fault that I think parents are trying to do the best they can for their kids. And we hear things like self-esteem's important, and people talk about mental health and, kids committing suicide and stuff like that. And we've had the conversation about the greatest generation, right? They ask them what made them so great. So we had it so hard. What would you do different for your kids? It would make it easier. And so we want it to be easy for our kids and for them to succeed. And I think people just sometimes take that to the extreme, and they end up spoiling their kid. And
well, check this out. Check this out from a deeper perspective of what you're saying, because I love everything you said there. But you start out by saying, I don't think it's really parents' fault from the society blaming the parents for the kids and whatnot. That created, what that did in my head, Craig, when you said that, is a spoiled child is spoiled by an outside source. We talked about society a little bit, but we'll call that maybe 20%. Where's the 80% of responsibility of an external source spoiling a child?
Well, it's ultimately the parents. It's ultimately the parent who does that.
Right. Supposedly.
Yeah. We talked about participation trophies a few minutes ago, and I can't remember now where I heard this, but there was a story, and I think it was a football player who, I'm not sure if he caught grief or if it was just a story about this event happening, but his kid was on a team and they didn't win a game or something like that, and he got a trophy. You were talking about this. And the dad threw the trophy away or wouldn't let his kid have it or something like that, because he's like, I'm not doing that. And so outside factors can try to influence how you raise your kid, but that ultimately falls back to you.
Well, in an empowerment way, yes. I feel like parents oftentimes do not feel empowered, which is a huge component of this, because I think that the innate knowledge that we've gained by being on this earth for 25 years, if you're a young parent, or 30 years, a lot of times people are before they're having their kids, that innate knowledge can shine through if you empower yourself to let it. And then there's very little chance, honestly, of quote unquote spoiling your kid. Now, that's a big statement.
Say that again.
But I think I believe that if parents feel empowered to engage their kids, not through fear, not through shame, not through do this, do that, and all the pressures that we talked about to create the helplessness and hopelessness last week, which I would really refer you to that show, right? Because there was a lot of good conversation about this in depth, that, you're not going to spoil your child. More than likely, you're going to use your innate knowledge over 25 or 30 years, and there's not going to be a problem. But oftentimes people don't feel empowered to make those decisions.
Why not?
Pressure. Parent guilt.
From who?
You should have that kid be the trophy. You just made that kid feel alone, and he's the only kid on that team that had that trophy. Craig, why would you do that to your kid?
Because I don't want him to grow up with an entitlement mentality.
Spoken from an empowered person who can speak his mind.
Thinking that the world's going to give him everything on a silver platter.
Who else on that team is going to be able to buck the trend, do your own input, engage your own decision-making that other people are not happy with? That's hard. I think you and I would. Obviously, the football player did. But I'm telling you, a lot of people do not get outside of themselves of the whole scope of everything that's going on.
Maybe they don't. But what's more important, raising a good kid and a good human being, or impressing your peers and the other parents?
I don't like anybody to not like me. I don't
Well,
want to do it wrong, and they all said that I'm supposed to do it this way. The school has a
you're right.
curriculum
You
that's
have
put into
to-
place, and I have to follow the curriculum. I mean, these are professionals, right? I mean, the audience can't see your big eye roll there, but I mean, that's the pressure from governmental agencies, from public school boards, from the coach. I've paid this coach $1,000, and this is the way he said to do it. How am I supposed to do it differently than the way that guy said to do it?
Yeah.
You know?
I see where you're coming from, man. But you got to look into stuff and do your own research, and you'll find those articles that say everybody needs to get a trophy. I know you will.
Absolutely.
But and I guess that people get influenced by external factors and how they interpret events and situations and stuff that they read. But ultimately, man, you have to figure out what you think is right and then do that, no matter what happens externally.
I'll give you another really good example that we just spent a lot of time talking to too. You referred to our show just a few weeks ago with Levon, right? How are you supposed to enable yourself feeling empowered to parent your child the way you feel that you're supposed to be empowered when you're in a cult and you don't even know it? And the religious organization there is saying this is what you're supposed to do with your kid. Pastor comes to your house and says, hey, you're not supposed to let your kid cuss. That's a terrible parenting strategy. We need to execute this Bible verse and go with this strategy, and I'm going to have you guys meet with me once a week.
Well, I think you have to,
It's hard.
It's hard, and you do have a lot of people telling you different things, and, you had an issue that you brought before our mastermind group to get advice. And you have to discern which advice that you're going to listen to and take action on from that meeting versus what you're going to not do. So it's tough, man. It's not easy. There's no blueprint out there, but
yeah, absolutely. A little show note. It was James Harrison who had said that. Now, is that my Steeler dude?
It said what?
Yes.
James Harrison was the guy that said no trophy.
Yeah, that's a Pittsburgh Steeler guy right there, bro.
That's awesome.
Proud of that.
That's awesome. My daughter had a situation where she was on a soccer team, and they didn't lose a game all season, so they were in the championship. And the coach sent out an email, and he said, "If we win, we're going to have a party at my house, pizza party at my house, and I'll get them a trophy, or a medal." I think is what he got them, and what he ended up getting them.
Yep.
He said, "If we lose and take second place, there'll be nothing." And dude, I sent him an email back and thanked him because I think that mentality is great.
Yeah.
In his mind, there was no trophy for second place, and hey, that's fine with me.
Spoken by a guy that I just noticed what your shirt says. You always have these messages on a shirt. Can I say? It
Sure.
says, "Rise and grind." I admire you, Craig. I need to, I know I'm poking at you there, but, I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you. Let's move real quick to Huffington Post, and then we'll take a quick break at the midpoint, I think. I'm going to kind of fire through these, and so maybe when we come back from the break, we'll kind of mention some things about it. But it was a cool article that I thought was kind of cool. Signs of raised spoiled brat. These are signs that you have a spoiled child. When you tell them no, they throw a tantrum until they get their way. Tantrums are bad, usually just behavioral. Learn to say no. We do behavioral methods in therapy. Largely, this is working with the parent. Now, interesting point I put on there. The OCD kid and the panic that can ensue. Remember the golden rule with anxiety, right? So this is something that's easy to say, and it's a little bit of an example. So I think I want to camp out here for just a minute.
What's the golden rule of anxiety?
I'll tell you in a second. Because when you're parenting, and a lot of times when things are more stressed than normal, or there's more of an issue than what you feel like other parents are dealing with, and honestly, a lot of times when I see tantrums and really worked up kids, angry in school or behavior disordered or these types of things, dude, I'll end up finding a diagnosable condition in the kid. Okay? And we need to realize that, because if you're struggling more than you think you should with a parent-child relationship, you really, I didn't plan this, but you really might want to get, because this isn't a plug, you might need help. That kid might need help, because kids do have OCD, Craig, at 5 years old. I can give you examples of that. I've seen it. It's crazy. People are like, "Wow, a 5-year-old with OCD?" Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's so many factors there. You're right.
And so the golden rule, to answer your question, is, that's just what I call it. the golden rule of anxiety is, don't avoid the thing that you're anxious about. You put yourself in the anxiety. We talked about it on some of the shows that we did anxiety about. Though immediately it wildly increases your anxiety experience with panic or phobias or panic attacks or various things like that, in the long run, it decreases your experience with anxiety. The typical thing is people will avoid what's anxious of them, tantrum, scream, try to quote-unquote get their way, right? However, that increases dramatically the long-term picture of anxiety.
That's interesting. How do you make a kid face his anxiety that way?
Exactly. And now when you try, you're going to trigger panic, fear, quote-unquote behavior. And this is a spoiled child because they're screaming in the middle of a mall. Sometimes, I'm just saying, there are added factors. I see your wheels spinning. A lot of time tantrums are just behavioral. I get that. Just raising the specter that there's a lot of other things that might be going on with this kid.
There could be. There definitely could be. I mean, that's not off the table. I think most tantrums that I think about and see, though, are probably just, I want an ice cream, and I can't get it. So I'm going to lay on the floor and kick and scream. And
Yeah, there are simple things like that for sure. But a lot of times when those things are going on, there's a lot of things happening in that kid's life. And I'll find that they're terribly upset that their parents are divorced. I'll find out that they're dealing with bullying. I'll find out that at, 10 years old, kids can go into tantrums pretty, older. They're struggling with, am I gay? I could just blow you away with all the kind of things that kids have talked about, in my office.
So if a kid's constantly acting that way, you might recommend they see a therapist.
Get it checked out.
Yeah.
You need help.
Okay.
Yeah, something might be going on that you can identify.
Got it.
Don't sit there and stay alone. Yeah, maybe that's a takeaway.
Could be like Gwen Weil talked about what?
Sensory.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's another, that's just impressive, Coach.
Yeah.
Impressive, because that is absolutely real. I mean, when kids are having sensory experience, they are freaking out. Like, that terrifies them by what they are seeing. So many people, so many spaces. I'm closed in. This is panicky. This is unsettling. I don't want to go to the mall. This is bad. An echo sound, the sensory experience of auditory. It is a loud place in the mall. There's, she talked about high sensory frequency kids. They don't, or actually low sensory frequency kids. They don't need a bunch of stimulus before they start getting overwhelmed. You go into a mall. The world hasn't seen malls in the last year, but dude, that could be a high sensory experience, right?
Definitely.
There's a lot going on there.
Definitely.
So yeah, when you tell them no, they throw a tantrum until they get their way. But I did think of the OCD, which is interesting that I was thinking that when I did this show prep a long time ago, and I revisited that when I was doing the show prep of about 40 minutes ago. Just a mental note in my own head. Anyway, funny. They're never satisfied with what they have. A lot of the entitlement. We talked about that before. But interestingly, I was thinking through this, honestly, not really clinical, but personal. I learned this from, Jeff Shook.
Yeah,
right?
I know Jeff.
Jeff Shook, he's an awesome guy. And, he told a story about how he was told, and thus my kids were told. Everything in this house is mine and your mother's. Everything.
That's awesome.
You
That's
have
true,
nothing.
Right? That is true.
Those clothes are mine. That bed you sleep on, we'll refer to it as go to your bed, but your mother and I own that thing.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Eddie Murphy Delirious. It's my house.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't go watch that if you hadn't seen it in today's world. It's totally not politically correct. This is my house, and if you don't like it, you can get the heck out of here.
Neil might have to look that up, put that on show notes. I'm not worried about politically correct. So they're never satisfied with what they have. But okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back because these are cool thoughts that I had with it, and we'll revisit it after the break. So from the Huffington Post article, they kind of came up with, when you tell them no, they throw a tantrum to get their way. Spoiled kids never get satisfied with what they have. They think the world revolves around them. Third, they demand things ASAP. They're sore losers. They don't give up on until they get what they want, and they refuse to complete even simple tasks until you beg or bribe them to do so. These are some signs of what we're talking about with these topics. But I think I had thoughts on maybe each of those. Shall we take a quick break, bro?
Sure.
All right. So we take a break to highlight our professional and relationship with Betterhelp. We have that as a wonderful resource. And honestly, I think the thing I want to highlight, I've been doing the last few weeks, is it really is a way to help you and help the show. Okay? You go to throughatherapist's.com. We need help financially to keep this thing free for everybody. And if you're thinking about going to Betterhelp, getting therapy experience, as Craig points out, in your own home, you go to throughatherapist's.com, you click on that counseling tab, and that sends you through and triggers the experience with teletherapy, and I think they have video conferencing therapy through their platforms. So if you're somewhere through the nation or the world, you can go to throughatherapist's.com. They give you a survey. You get it matched up with clinical issues and clinical therapist preferences. And Greg, it's effective. So back to the show. Yeah, man. The third thing that they're identifying, they think the world revolves around them, egocentrism, right? To defeat this or manage this, interestingly, in thought-provoking questions, right? Such as, quote, how might you think of that person's view and better get your argument heard? This is something you can kind of go with, right? And what might that person be thinking, son? Girl, that teacher sounds really against you right now. Wonder what is in their mind. What are they concerned about? So it's a way to kind of, flip that thing around when the kid's bitching about their coach or screaming about their dance class or, some other people that are in the class telling them what to do, dealing with bullying. Those questions kind of came into my mind. Turn those questions around to purposely begin training their thinking to the other person's perspective. Just to, I think I kind of did that all the time, throughout the years. Sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
That is a defeat for the tendency that a spoiled kid thinks the world revolves around them. All right. Next thing they said is demand the things ASAP. When a hyper kid is in my office, we have an agreement. Okay. We sit down and talk for a developmental time period that's appropriate for that age of that kid, and then we extend as the therapy go on. We'll make that a little bit longer, kind of, in goal through improving their tolerance of just, hey, sit down, have a conversation. Sometimes that might start 5 minutes. And a big success 5 months later is a 7-minute conversation. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not.
So you actually make an agreement with the kid, we'll sit and talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. As a purposeful strategy, right? To help them understand, you have to wait. Just a little bit of so young therapists out there, it's kind of a cool strategy, maybe. Even with Asperger's kids, they get the rules, right? They love the rules. So the rule is we're going to have a 10-minute conversation about this thing that we're dealing with. And then we can talk about whatever you want the whole rest of the night. And they love it. And they follow the rule and they learn how to wait.
Cool. It's like setting a boundary too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Try to model it in session. I mean, they don't really realize it, but that's kind of the goal. The next one they said was this spoiled child is sore losers. In therapy, I actually purposely will defeat the child in a game, right?
How do you manage to purposely defeat them?
Well, I mean, I'm just
I played Monopoly with my daughter and got beat the other day.
Well, it's because you suck. No, no. I mean, with checkers or chess or whatever, if I'm playing with a 7-year-old, I'll kind of dial it back and teach him the game and whatever. But oftentimes in sessions, I will destroy the kid. When I'm seeing this is a clinical issue. Well, they get destroyed. I mean, chess is over in like 10 moves because I can play. So I can control the dynamics.
Yeah. How do you handle that? Sore lose. That's an interesting topic for me because some kids really just are competitive. I mean, that's their nature. We talked about Michael Jordan with Tom Dutta, Some kids, and they have to learn how. My kids are competitive, and they were sore losers as kids. They weren't spoiled kids, but they didn't and still do not like to lose.
So says you.
But they have learned how to manage the loss emotionally and mentally.
Yeah. I mean, there's a balance there. You don't want to squash a kid either. You don't want to squash their creativity. You don't want to, it's again, right? Nobody knows. Here's a statement that comes to my mind. I'll make this bold statement. Nobody knows a child as well as that parent knows that child. Can we make that statement, I think?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I
mean, seriously, they've seen this kid develop, I mean, baby, birth, bottle, whole 9 yards. And I'll tell you, a personality is fully developed, almost by the age of 2 at 80%. And that child's seen all of that.
Yeah.
And then followed through year 3, year 4, year 5. Let's just stop there. What other person in the world knows that child as well?
Should be the parent.
right?
Should be.
Has to be, just because they're around them, unless you're talking about crazy neglect situations and stuff like that. But nevertheless, right? So you have to kind of create that balance between not squashing their spirit, but they have to be able to lose well.
Yeah.
So, all right, I guess I've transitioned already to some of what we want to do about this. So they don't give up until they get what they want. I wrote, honestly, realize the parent reality. They can't get anything unless you provide it. Talk about feeling empowered. If that kid wants something, particularly at the younger ages, they cannot get it unless you give it.
Now, that's an interesting one, too, because we
Yeah.
hear so much these days about never quit and don't give up and chase your dreams and all that stuff. And then they say, hey, can I get an ice cream? Nope.
Yep.
And they're not going to get it, they're just
Yep.
not going to get it no matter what happens.
Yep.
No matter how hard they work or whatever, it ain't happening.
And you know what's funny that you're tapping on there, buddy, is that balance I'm trying to kind of speak to. I mean, and I think that's the way parents get into these traps. I mean, they're wanting to instill these things, but we take them and twist them and wrap them around, from just the way they're thinking about things, So, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting to me. Yeah. Let me see. They don't give up until they get what they want. You say, that's good. And it is. But that's a part of being a spoiled child. They refuse to complete even simple tasks until you beg them or bribe them. Listen, people love to talk about rewards, or in school they have all kinds of what's called token societies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said beg or bribe there in the show notes, but there's also punishment too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to watch your show? No, not until you clean up your room.
Sure.
You want to get that ice cream? Not until you clean up your room.
Sure. Yeah. No, there's behavior that, bear with me. I hate to mention the love and logic again, but if a kid wants something, I mean, the love and logic kind of notions are kind of like, well, yeah, you can go do that, but there's a problem because this is the issue, and you're not fixing that problem. So you're not putting yourself into a situation where you get that result, and the result is TV time, game time, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's all the teaching that goes along the way. Now, choices are important, but they have to be behavior first. Also, be aware if they don't act like they're interested in the reward, don't play the power struggle game and let them not do the behavior, but then they get the reward anyway. Or, they don't get the reward either. Kid, what's that?
So what do you do if you say, hey, you want some ice cream?
Yeah.
Yeah. Clean up your room. Nah, I don't want any ice cream.
Right.
So I'm not going to clean up my room.
I love the question. And I talk to parents all the time. This is Chris Gazdickism, if you will. Develop X-ray vision. You've got to see through some of this crap, man. They will make you believe. I can't, Craig, listen. That's awesome that you said that. So many times I'll be talking to parents and their kids, and we're looking at the chief complaint, the problem, the point of issue. And, the parent kind of, throws at me constantly this, well, I've tried everything. Can't tell you how many times I've heard that, which is impossible, by the way, for all you parents listening out there. There's an endless array of combination of strategies and things you can do. You can't possibly ever try everything. How about that for another thought that comes to my mind as we're talking? Anyway, and they're like, oh, I've taken this away and I've done that, and they don't have their door on their room anymore, because parents do a lot of things, taking their doors off of the rooms, and I mean, the privilege loss can be just on and on and on and on. And guess what, Craig? The kid doesn't care. They just don't care. They're still not doing their homework. They're still not cleaning up the room. They're still not cleaning the bathroom. They still didn't do the lawn. They don't care. So the parent leaves the room, and you know what the kid tells me?
What's that?
My parents are so awful. They treat me so bad. They take all this stuff away. They don't give me any privileges. They don't listen to what I'm thinking. They're terrible. Oh.
Right? So what do you tell them back?
Oh, we have a conversation about that for sure. But my point right
Clean up your room.
Right. My point right here is, though, they made that parent feel like they don't care about any of the things that they did. Does that sound like a kid that doesn't care?
No, they definitely care.
Terribly care.
Yeah.
I mean, angry, not getting it, missing the point, showing you, whatever. Yeah, you want to take my blankets off my bed? Fine, I don't care. Whatever. You want to not give me ice cream? I don't care about ice cream, Mom. Bad for my health anyway. I don't care. Oh, you don't want to let me play baseball anymore?
What kids
whatever.
ever said ice cream's bad for their health, so they don't care?
Well, that might have been an older.
That was a
kid.
stretch.
Good
bud.
catch. Good catch. Good catch. What should we expect from our kids? I think that we want to hit that real briefly. Yeah, this is the one that I kind of thought, what are we looking at? Because, the reason why I kind of had this as a part of our conversation with spoiled kids, a lot of times we don't know what should we expect, I mean, I want to do a good job, my kid's doing this, and there's a lot of panic, and should they have figured this out yet or not? Like, what should I reasonably expect this kid to be able to do? And that's very different at the age of 5 to the age of 15. I think we started off the show talking about that, right? So if you're thinking about that from a developmental standpoint, and you're thinking that this kid should be able to understand the money involved and the time and effort and energies with, getting a pair of shoes that they want, and they're in a store and they're screaming because they can't get the shoes, and they're like, well, you haven't done your work. You don't respect my work and my effort and energy I do every day going to work, and and you're not getting that, and I'm angry with you for wanting these shoes. With a 5-year-old, like, wouldn't that be ridiculous?
Yeah, that'd be kind of fruitless.
A 5-year-old's just not going to get it. Now, I'm exaggerating this a little bit to make the point, but you'd be surprised. I mean, parents forget and don't realize a lot of times, dude, man, this kid doesn't get it. So blowing through this, do I even want to do this? Just take this with a grain of salt. It's Psych 101 kind of stuff. Developmental milestones in childhood development. I should probably have my wife on this show, man. She works with childhood development. She should be
should have had her own. Yeah,
that'd be a good one. She ain't never going to agree to that. Well, I'll try. No, you know what? You call her. You try. How about that? That's better. Way better. Trust me.
I hear you, man.
Way better. Concrete operational stage is what they call from 7 to 11. We're more aware of external events and less egocentrism. Formal operation stage is about 11 years old and older. They become more logical to solve problems and, how to plan for the future. So there's a lot of different stages, particularly of the early kids. But if you think about that, just in the concrete operational stage versus the formal operational stage, we're getting to the older kids where, when you become formally operational, you're really using your amygdala, which isn't developed till you're 22. So you're new at getting that operational ability at, about middle school.
Yeah, we've talked about the brain development
right
in previous shows, but the brain's not fully developed until mid-20s, right?
Yeah.
Then we wonder why kids make stupid decisions,
right?
Stupid things. It's because their brains aren't there yet.
They're not there. Not even close. And I tell you, I know that it was somewhere in my show notes that I have to make this point. I'll do it now. I really learned this with my older kid. He was a big kid. He was one of the biggest kids in middle school. Tall. He's freaking big feet, long fingers. And we got a new principal his 7th grade year. And Aaron, he just loved to be, goof off. And I mean, part of the goal was go to redirect and get out of class.
That was part of the goal?
Part of the goal, yeah.
At least he had goals.
Yeah, boy. He struggled with school for various reasons. But I was having a conversation with the principal, and he totally taught me this. He said, Chris, you got to think about something. These kids look big. Girls, after they hit puberty and whatnot, sometimes they're beginning to develop at age 10, Like, my kid was huge, long fingers, big guy, and his brain was not big. Right? You should see Craig's face, audience. That was classic. He's not thinking on a full-grown man's level at age 14, people. But at times, because of the way that they look, you think they are. And they're nowhere near that. Kid's awesome now with, working and managing money and different things. I'm super proud of him in a lot of ways. But every now and again, he says something, and it's just like a reminder, Craig. Like, his kid's graduated high school, and I'm like, dude, where's your brain?
He's still only 20, right? Aaron's 20?
No, he hasn't hit 20 yet.
He's 19?
He's turned 19, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, they're not there. And we need to understand how much their emotions, their emotion management, their amygdala thinking through things. I'm sorry, amygdala is the fear center. Their frontal cortex, thinking through things and abstract reasoning ability. It's just not there. Like, they need help. They need suggestions. They need support. They don't need to be crushed and slammed and controlled and just punished. There's a certain place for that. But think of those questions, right? Well, I wonder what your coach is thinking about your performance and why he made the decision to bench you. You ask a question like that, the kid's not going to have any clue. But they might think about it. You're empowering them to get out of themselves. You're really guiding them to be non-spoiled and, objective. Maybe for at least 5 minutes. Right? All right, where are we at? Okay, be careful on what to expect. They're not children developmentally. Oh, yeah, that's where it is. They look big, but they're not, they're not inside. I just made that point loud and clear. Using compassion, it's one of the reasons why I love the Love and Logic folks. I mean, they explode with compassion, being able to, to really care that this kid is struggling, this kid is having a hard time. And we forget that, man, when we're frustrated with them, ticked off, and whatever. So, enemy number one to parenting, by the way, also is what, Craig? Do you remember?
Judgment?
No. Good. True, too, probably. My quote, we haven't talked about parenting a lot lately, have we?
No, we hadn't. We did last show, and I don't remember what all we talked about.
I'm glad we're getting...
So I may have missed it.
I'm sure you'll remember it when I say this. In my belief, enemy number one to parenting is power struggles.
Oh, yeah. I've heard you say that before. Yeah, right.
It's just a death knell to try to have a relationship with somebody.
Though. At some point.
Oh, well, yes.
It's definitely going to happen.
I fall into them all the time. Yeah, absolutely. But if you're guarding against that and you're working hard to manage that, then you're going to be in much better shape.
Yeah, I agree.
Get ready to watch your child struggle. We've talked about that, the greatest generation thing.
Yeah, that's a big one for me, man. I think you got to do it. It's hard to do, but you got to let them struggle some. That's where growth happens for everybody in the struggle.
So developmentally, I really want to refer you somewhere in the middle of our 100 shows. We really did some episodes with some experts, and that was good stuff, man. You remember Mr. Weigel?
Yes.
Yeah, man. He was.
We should have him come back, man.
We're getting to the point where we probably should really have some of these guests back. I mean, we only had a few repeat offenders.
Yeah, I enjoyed that conversation.
Because there's so much I want to get to and talk about, honestly, in the show. So, going back to somebody's kind of like, why would we go back? We get somebody new. But,
if you don't know, guys, he talked about social media and how it affects children, and he's an expert in that category.
He blew my brain.
Really a good conversation, yeah.
Yeah, you got to find that episode. You'll go much deeper into the idea that understand the effect of the now generation with social media and the technology boom. I want to name this generation the pocket computer generation. How about that, Craig? Should have had that off. How about that? They have cool names: Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z. Come on, we could do better.
Yeah.
How about this one, man? The pocket computer generation.
The pocket computer. Yeah, I think it makes sense. There's a quote in that Social Dilemma movie that I just popped into my head. We talk about the negative effects of social media and the attention grabbing in the news feeds and on YouTube and stuff like that. And the guy said, Tristan, what's his last name? What was his name? Tristan something.
Don't know.
But he said that it's something about it's hard to get out of the matrix when you grew up in it.
Okay, I remember that.
Going back to pre-social media or the way it was before is difficult for this generation because they've grown up.
Yeah.
They've grown up in it.
We're a dying generation, Craig, you and I.
Absolutely, yeah.
We are the last.
That's kind of scary.
It really is. Because it was very different. Really, it was very, very different. Arguably, maybe Neil, our producer here, is of the last generation in that because these more impactful than computer and internet tendencies. I think the bigger marker is when social media started to be more impactful. Talk about when 4G came out on phones, probably.
Yeah.
That's when it really, really shifted.
Definitely.
Much more than. So maybe we got a generation under us, Craig. There's hope.
I hope so.
There's hope. There's always hope, right? Why is this stuff important today? Because spoiled kids make for spoiled adults. And I think there is truth to that. So as much as I kind of, said that earlier, speak out of both sides of my mouth a little bit. There's a lot of gray with what is a spoiled child and how does that work, and I think we've weaved that in and around, our show today with some ideas and thoughts about how to combat it throughout. But this really is important stuff. I mean, we're trying to have, the development for kids in such an important time in their life, and it really is so challenging. But man, being a parent is a dynamic responsibility that is invaluable in that child's life, whether you realize it or not. They make you think that they hate you, and they just don't. They really don't. It's just that they're dealing with so many scary emotions and don't know how to cope and don't know what to do, and they make you think that they just don't care and they just don't like you. God bless you. He turned his mic off. Maybe they didn't even hear that.
Hope not.
They do care and they do bond with you and they come back around. Craig, tell me that's so. You got a 26-year-old and mine hasn't really totally come back around. Am I speaking the truth or am I just trying to be hopeful and optimistic?
Yeah, you are. So my son was very, very difficult when it came to being one of those young men who knew it all, right? We couldn't really talk to Austin and give him advice, and it was so frustrating because we would tell him things for 6 months. He would go to his grandparents' house and come home and say, "Hey, guess what Granddad said?" And he would say it, and it's like, dude, I've been saying it for 6 months,
Expletive.
And he hasn't heard it. And I remember a conversation at Cracker Barrel with him, and me and his mother were sitting beside each other, and he was sitting across the table. And I can't remember what happened, but she got so angry with Austin that I thought she was going to go across the table, man, and slap his face. And so I looked over at her, and I said, "Look, from now on, we're not going to give him any advice. If he wants our advice, he can come and ask for it."
And he was about how old?
He was about 18, 19. Yeah. I said, "And we'll be happy to give it to him, but do not give him any more advice, period." And he was, sitting across the table again, and you could see his wheels spinning a little bit. After that night, dude, he started to turn. The ship started to turn. And now, if my son needs advice or has something on his mind, I'm the first one that he calls. So that's big for me, right? And I enjoy that, and I'm happy about that. But I never thought that day would come when he was younger, man.
And that can happen earlier. I'm gonna retort you a little bit, Craig. Not really a retort, but we talked about that. Just being friends, probably a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Right? Because I knew that story.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a cool story.
Yeah.
And it just so happened. This is an example of what to do to get out of helplessness and hopelessness. Remember how we talked about learn from others?
Yeah.
Remember my stupid example of like the camera or something on your computer? When I was just learned from you how to do that. But here's the thing. When you're around other parents and you're engaging with them and you're talking to them and you're asking questions and you're just having discussions so that you're not alone on how do you manage a parent-child relationship, you learn from people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so, wait a minute. And so what happened is we had that conversation and it must have made an impression on me. And I remember, I don't know when it was, but I started to employ, not as dramatic the shift as that was at the Cracker Barrel, but I started kind of, suggesting that to Aaron. I was like, dude, man, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to give you advice so much. I mean, you're older now. You're a senior in high school or whatever it was. And, truth is, you got to figure it out. Love and logic stuff was involved in there too. Wait a minute. So what's happened recently now? Literally, he just had a conversation about a week ago, and it just dawned on me when you were retelling that story. He came to his mother and I. He's like, "Hey, I really want to have a conversation, guys. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I really want to be successful in life, and I really want to figure this out, and what direction I'm going to be doing, and all that. Can we have a conversation about that?"
Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah,
from you.
19.
But it wasn't a dramatic shift. That's why I said like the Titanic turning. How long it takes to turn a cruise ship? A long time. Or a big boat like that. So it was over time, but now it's kind of like that. And I think that kind of thing's probably common for young kids, to think their parents are fools. I mean, even Mark Twain's quoted as saying, when I was 14 years old, I thought my dad was a complete idiot. I was shocked at how much knowledge he gained over 7 years. So by the time Mark Twain was 21, his father had gained all this knowledge.
Nice.
And the point
Right.
is, he knew it all along, right? It's just
Sure.
Mark Twain grew into realizing that his dad knew it.
I think I've heard you say that before.
And dude, Austin, sometimes now when I'm talking to him, he's like, "Hey, Dad, remember when I wanted to buy that car and you wouldn't let me? I'm so glad I didn't do that." It's cool to hear.
It kind of comes back around a little
cool to
bit.
hear stuff
So for
like
those
that.
younger parents that are dealing with teenagers or middle schoolers, just listen to Craig. He's got older kids. I am. And I'm already seeing a little bit of turnaround, so that's kind of good stuff. So listen, this is important stuff. Okay, let me run through this super quick. And then let's wrap up on what do we do, to be thinking more of these answers. But this is really important when you're dealing with a parent-child relationship, And I think it's really demonstrated because, Craig, do you think we're that different than the kids we're parenting?
No.
Right? No. We're really not. We're actually managing on the adult level. We're being truthful about it. A lot of the exact same things that they're trying to manage.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. Think it. Don't we have the same insecurities? Yeah. Isn't fear a driving force for adults as well? Yeah. Don't we have the same media impacts in our lives? Yeah. How easy it is to accept no from your spouse or boss, right? How frustrated do we get with various social ills? Road rage, anybody? Anybody have road rage out there or get irritated? Curse at people in the road? I have a friend that would stick her middle finger up under the dashboard, not showing anybody that she's pissed off, because keep it there. Do adults really sit enough to problem solve issues that we face, especially complicated ones? What about relationship skills? Man, we're going to get back to talk about marriage a little bit too here soon. Are we definitely struggling in marriage and relationships that are close with other people? How about funerals and money discussions with family members? Don't adults struggle with loneliness? And don't adults struggle with how to make a friend? How do adults handle marital frustrations with engulfment and abandonment? We yell a lot and throw tantrums, just more sophisticated, don't we? Right? I just ran down through these things, Craig, to kind of demonstrate, look, dude, we are in the same boat trying to, as we say at the beginning of the show, figure this stuff out together, right?
Yeah. It's just funny. When you said that, it made me think of something I heard Joe Rogan say. He said that, when we're kids, we can't wait to grow up, so we'll have it all figured out, because evidently these adults have it all figured out. But then when we grow up, we realize nobody knows what the F's going on.
Yeah.
Nobody's got it figured out.
And that's scary, honestly, to speak to the truth and honesty of that, Craig. If you think about the awesome responsibility that you have as a full-ass grown adult, and you're charged exclusively, you and your spouse, hopefully together, to teach this kid that you really don't have the answers for. And that's the truth.
A lot of times we don't, man. I mean, life teaches us hard lessons sometimes, but a lot of times we don't know what to do or what's going to happen.
And that's okay.
And we could be faced with a new situation that we've never gone through before with this kid.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, hopelessness and helplessness, right? That was one of the things that it stuck out in my brain when I was show prepping and talking with you about that.
Yeah.
Aren't most of these situations the first time in our life that we've experienced?
A lot of times they are. We're making it up as we go along. We're trying to figure it out,
Yeah, So, sorry, I went on a little rant there, didn't I? That's good though, right?
It can be.
Not when the mics are off and you're listening to me rant about other things. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I'm not saying anything, man.
So what do you think, Craig? Let's wrap us up. What are some of the answers? We peppered them in all throughout, as you've listened to us. But what are some of the answers to spoiled children?
That's a good question. What are the answers to spoiled children? I think you just got to realize that you're trying to raise good human beings, no matter even if it's difficult. I think you have to stick to your guns. If a child's, earlier you said something about a child pitching a tantrum until they get what he wants or he or she wants. Well, you don't give in. You got to hold to your guns, even if they're pitching a tantrum. And then if your parenting style takes that to a different level, then maybe you do that. I don't know. But, I think you have to realize that we're raising responsible adults who are going to be faced with hard times in the future, and they're not always going to get what they want.
I think parents need help getting outside of their own head. Unless you're a self-actualized individual who's reached the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sorry, it's a little psychobabble talk, Craig, but it's true. Unless you really have your stuff all perfectly together, you're struggling with some of the same things and you need help. So talk to your friends, talk to your people.
Talk to your parents.
Talk to your parents, right? They may be critical of you, though, so have multiple sources.
Yeah, I mean, they may be critical of you. I mean, it's...
And some of that's okay.
Yeah.
They need to be.
That's one source that you could go get a perspective from.
Mindfulness, exercising, using friendships. Here's a neat idea. That came out weird. The hair.
Is that your West Virginia coming out?
Well, I said hair, and I meant here, and then I figured I'd just take it another step further and just throw some of the West Virginia in there. Yeah, that's what happened there. Here's a great idea, man. Celebrate successes. Whenever there's a little limited success, man, that kid is starving for you and your pride in them and your praise, and they love it. So it might be that, hey, you only screamed for 7 minutes this time in your tantrum. I think you're getting better. That's so wonderful. Good job. I'm not saying be naive and blow smoke at stuff, but seriously, like, when a kid cleans his room, like, wow, dude, your room really looks good. It looks awesome.
Yeah, I can agree with celebrating that. I can't agree with celebrating the length of a tantrum. But,
well,
I mean, do it best for you.
If that's all you got, man. If that's all you got, sometimes you have to build on where we're at.
It's cool when kids do the right thing, The other day, I forget what it was, but my daughter was doing something, and I'm like, okay, who are you, and where's the real Vivian?
Right?
Yeah.
Right? What happened? Those are awesome moments.
Yeah.
Those are awesome moments, right? Celebrate successes, learn from failures, engage dreaming. Don't be afraid to want, But here's a quote from my book, actually. Don't be afraid to want. Don't be afraid to engage dreaming. But humble people are happy people. That's one of the chapters in there. And I think that's what we're trying to really kind of help kids understand. You know what? You screw up, it's all right. You're humble. Be humble as a parent. Let them show your struggle. Humble people are happy people. Maybe we should do that as a book chapter special note. Sound interesting?
Sounds good.
We'll do it someday.
Let's do it.
Wrap us up, man, here. Sum us up and get us out of here, Mr. Craig Graves.
I'm not sure how to sum us up. I think we've already done all that. ThroughItTherapistDies.com, guys. Don't forget the counseling tab for Betterhelp. And Chris, what's next?
Kind of a review, I think. We're gonna have a hodgepodge of current event that's really fascinating. I think you're going to check out on social media stuff next week. I think that'll be a good conversation and kind of parent wrap up a little bit in this little marathon we've done with focusing on the parent-child relationship. So we will see you all next week with that.